Hello and welcome to Writer's Showcase again. And it's a weird time this week. That is mainly because my little sister got married yesterday, and I was away from my computer until 3. I probably could have, but I was extremely tired. So, yeah. Anyway, allow me to bring in my guests, starting off
The
with.
fact is, Starscream, despite your treachery, I've allowed you to carry on this long because I took a certain delight in following your string of failures. But you finally become tiresome, predictable. You've hit rock bottom.
Hello.
Hello. I figured since you like Transformers, that is a fairly perfect clip.
Indeed.
Especially since that is probably the most badass Megatron has ever been in a TV show.
Agreed.
Alrighty, let's bring in the rest.
The chorus, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like this one.
And you all get A's or F's. And there is no test. And you all failed it. And you all got A's. Who cares? Goodbye. Goodbye.
You know, he would be what I would be if I were a teacher, most likely.
We should watch The Good Place. The Good Place is one of the best shows I've ever watched. Surprisingly poignant, too. It's got some of the best jokes I've ever seen, like this one.
This is a real low point. Yeah, this one hurts. Ow.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, I think, Valerian, you're eating, correct?
I'm still eating.
Okay. So, how are we doing in the next pattern? Mr. Codex, then Aspiring, then Valerian, then me.
Mm-hmm.
Sound good?
Okay.
Okay, should work okay.
Cool. Take it away, buddy.
So it's only just a little bit I've done it. I haven't really finished writing the whole story, but just the bare necessities essentially. Saga of Fire. The childlike inhabitants of the island of the Great Spirit rejoiced, for the torment of his dark brother's wickedness and dark plagues were coming to an end. For one of the prophesied warriors of light had finally arrived, the brightest light in their darkest hours. And after 1,000 years, he has come. The mechanical war was taken aback, lowering his sword as he did so. His correlating fire over the blade's edge died out as his thoughts raced behind his mask. He looked at these people as their joy spilled out like starbursts, if they could be called people. Why did this wise man kneel before him? Who were these people? Had he just arrived on this island? What are you talking about? Who am I? He asked in a noble voice. All in due time, but it's not safe here. So return with us back to our village, he said. He said their lead. So said his leader. Their leader, sorry. So the one who followed him from the beach, the mechanical warrior thought. The elder gathered his warriors, briefly to explain their next course of action. His joints creaked and cranked. With each step he led, led them through the Ashland woodlands, only stopping as he saw the hesitation of the mechanical warrior's eyes. "I understand you have many questions," said the elder, "but all revealed to you in time." With this statement, the mechanical warrior followed them wherever they were heading. With a few strides, he effectively reached the group, allowing him to take look closely at these child-sized warriors. These tiny warriors' bodies seemed mechanical. The armored frames were a dull silver with muscle fiber coursing through their form. The elders seemed of a similar design, but seemed more ancient. But all wore masks, and varied between fine copper red, black iron, and polished steel, with a small golden light a golden light glowing in the center of their chests. Compared to his armor, a brilliant fiery red mapped around with a golden trimming, with mechanical pistons and gears moving in sequence as he moved. Only his left side exposed his blackened mechanical joints. The mechanical warrior gazed around his surroundings. The trees were pale white, bent in weird shapes due to some immense force some time ago. Still, they seemed sturdy enough, the warrior thought, until one of the childlike warriors tripped over its exposed roots and knocking a chunk of the tree, which crumbled like dust. And everywhere around him, fluttering fleets of ash descended from the ruby sky like black snow. As they walked past withered trees, the mechanical warrior saw a small black stone tower, no more prominent than the pale. Can't say anything today. No more prominent than the pale white tree stretching across an open wide chasm of fire. It seemed lazily made, the mechanical warrior thought, but seemed suitable for defending their homeland. Several guards stepped out of a small passageway, out of a side passageway of a building, out of the building, weapons raised, only lowering them when the elder. Sorry about this. Only lowering them when the elder was leading the company of warriors. As they walked over to convey their concerns, standing stock still, behind them was the warrior of eternal fire. After that, they all dropped to one knee. "Would you allow us to pass, little ones?" asked the elder to the lead guardsman. The lead guard stood up and met the elder's gaze, trembling to be near a living legend. A moment, please," he said, gesturing to the others inside the blackened gatehouse. The mechanical warrior found it curious that these tiny people could build and manage such a force of military might. Then, after a second, several colossal rocks pushed upwards from the sea of lava, forming a bridge stretching across the flaming sea. The mechanical warrior gazed outwards and was amazed at what he saw. A village carved into the blackened rock itself. "Come, my friend, your home awaits you." I'm done.
Okay, nice. Short. It kind of seemed like you were having a little bit of trouble reading.
Yeah, I just had a bit too much to drink a little bit. Do apologize.
No, it's totally fine. It's just that it's just kind of is just a tad obvious, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It was just at some points I feel like I got the gist of what you were trying to do, though. So I think you did well. You've made a lot of improvements to the draft from what I can see over the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you've described a lot of the various. I feel like I could picture this world much and the characters much better. I can. I like the internal monologue quite a bit. I think that's done very well.
I still need to read the draft. Sorry.
It's fine. I'll send it to you a bit later.
I think you sent it to me already, but I just haven't got around to it. Sorry.
It may be a bit outdated. Let me just, again, like I said, I'll send the new one to you. I've been working on it a bit here and there.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it helps if you practice before. The first time I read it, practiced beforehand for a week beforehand, so I wouldn't be too nervous. So maybe that would help.
Yeah, I've just been a bit busy of late as well. Just had a lot of stuff on the mind.
Makes sense.
But I do see your point, though. Yeah, I should probably do that.
Yeah, that might help. But it's definitely intriguing, though.
Mm.
I'll have to read the draft to see, because sometimes I'm not always sure who exactly is talking. So I'll probably need to read the draft to get a better idea of that. But the story is definitely interesting.
Mm.
It's still the same one, right? The mechanical chap, and they think he's like some kind of god or something.
Of a sort, yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely that is definitely a promising premise. That's sort of it. That happened.
That seems fairly straightforward. I don't have any other feedback for you. So nice and short. Alrighty. Aspiring, I believe it's your turn.
Yeah. So this is just going to be what I read last week, except I split the last chapter I read into two and made some edits. The first part is more or less the same. There's some small changes here and there, and then the second one is fairly different. I'll read that one next week. So yeah, this will just be a repeat, and you guys will be able to tell me if the pacing's better if it's just this half. The ramp of Vampire's freighter lowered to the distant orange flashes of plasma fire, the landing bay within the dome quiet and empty. Looking back at her squad, 7 members all geared in black with their faces hidden, Vampire walked down and entered the main dome of the outpost. Immediately, the sounds of plasma fire and the sizzling of stray shots scorching stone or metal filled her ears. White cylindrical buildings with domed tops now had black scorch marks and holes, the number increasing the further inside you looked. Moving and turning through the tight spaces between the buildings, barely enough to fit 2 people walking side by side, Vampire's brow drew together. Hardly an ideal battleground for most, with the line of fire not extending more than 10 meters, they did favor her method of fighting. Perhaps it was best that she had been sent. Approaching where the ascending territory had set up command, she saw someone run to get whoever was in charge. A minute later, approaching in the black uniform with an orange spiral on his sleeve of an IPS enforcement officer, was someone with the rank of operations commander on his collar. The aged human inclined his balding head to her, Philly's aide by his side. I am Operations Commander Tavik of the Interplanetary and System Enforcement. Vampra, leader of the Angels of the Executor, she said formally, the introduction unnecessary. What's the current status? The operations commander waited for his aide to hand him a screen, and a hologram of the atmosphere dome popped up. He made a line down the middle of the outpost, one side red while the other green, and marked 2 positions on the enemy side with a red dot. The rebelling civilians have raided the armory and created a line, falling back if we ever start pushing through to strengthen their line until we fall back again. The hologram showed the green line pushing the red line back, but the red line grew thicker and stopped. Civilians no longer spread out before returning to normal in the middle. We're trying to limit casualties on both sides, but if this goes on any longer, that won't be a luxury I can afford. We believe the targets have been placed in the center in this building, away from non-combatants hiding at the back. What were they able to acquire from the armory? Ogre wirefrills, standard issues. There were 2 sets of Purters, single load, but we haven't seen them use it, so they may not know how to operate them. Behind her, Vampra heard one of her squad ask, "Why would you have access to Purter arms?" The operations commander turned and said, "The outpost was meant to act as a weapons reserve in case of emergency." His face flushed as he continued reluctantly. Those who knew how to access the armory and stayed in the outpost defected to the civilian side. Vampra kept her eyes on the hologram before facing her squad. "You two, I want you two to guard my flank. The rest of you will go and capture the armory. Tavek, you will order your men to handle the armed civilians. I will handle capturing the targets." Before he could respond, Vampra went past him and toward the firing line. The soldiers were trying to take cover behind the buildings, but the lack of space in corners made it difficult. The buildings here were so badly damaged that most of their front portion were gone, where their interiors exposed. It wouldn't be long before both sides lost their first line of cover. What would have made the residents willing to destroy their own homes? Stopping, Vampra held her hand up, signaling her squad to wait, and strained to her legs. Her reserve of souls restocked on her way here. Launching herself over the line, above the domed rooftops, she came down behind one of the buildings on the civilian side, a human and McKee laying on their stomach, almost jumping to their feet, thumping their plasma rifles in surprise. Grabbing and hitting their heads together, they dropped their rifles and grabbed their temples, dazed. Vampra laid a gentle hand on their heads and, consuming some souls, gave each a small jolt, enough for both to fall unconscious. Buildings to either side of her, blocking her from view, she contacted Tavek about where she broke the enemy line before calling her squad to her. Once her squad arrived, Vampra told Zelly and Garsoon, the 2 she assigned to flank her, how she planned to approach the target house. She's going to try and approach it from the left side while they came from the right, and disappeared in the forest of buildings as Tavek's soldiers started marching through, her squad vanishing just as easily. Stealing her way through, Vampra noted that the buildings on this side of the outpost were less damaged, many completely intact without even a stray bolt having scorched it. Tavek had indeed been trying to show restraint. She didn't encounter further resistance as she made her way through the target building. These were civilians, so they may not have thought of having a layered defense. Or maybe just didn't have the spare numbers. The lack of flat roofs at least allayed one of her worries of getting ambushed from above. Anyone up there would have a difficult time staying up there. Turning the last curved corner, Vampra's eyes widened and she dove back behind the building as someone cried out. A moment later, a large purple bolt of plasma hissed past where she had been and hit one of the buildings behind her, bursting it apart with the rust collapsing in on itself. Seems like they do know how to operate those Purters, Vampra thought angrily. She'd have to be careful of those. Those plasma rounds are capable of bringing down starships. If she wasn't healing, a well-placed shot would kill her instantly. Straightening her legs, Vampra hopped onto the roof and stabbed her sight into it, giving her a handhold. Peeking over, the sound of her sight piercing the metal didn't appear to have been noticed, the sound of plasma fire even louder than before. Watching, Vampra saw them reload the Purter that had fired before slowly encroaching on her position, a few staying back near the target house, including one of the 2 wielding a Purter. Keeping herself hidden, Vampra waited as space below her was getting surrounded, aware of the 2 masked figures that had so far gone unnoticed, behind the building on the opposite side of the target house. As the armed civilians were about to get behind the building, Zelly and Garsoon opened fire. The civilians immediately fell into disarray. The one who had stayed back with the Purter fired at where the plasma bolts were coming from, destroying a building and hiding her squad with the debris that flew up. Half the civilians turned their attention to her 2 squad members, firing blindly into the debris cloud, while the other half seemed torn between focusing on this new threat or Vampira, who they had noticed wasn't where they thought she was. Celine Garsoon continued firing, changing positions within the debris cloud after every few shots, leaving burn wounds bigger than a fist on those they hit. Those who were injured fell to the ground, effectively incapacitated by the pain. The one who had fired a Perturrider squad tried to reload the large plasma arm himself, with a plasma pack that looked like a food can, before being shot in the arm himself. Seeing this, the second one with a Pertur started over to fire around himself. As he took aim at the dissipating debris cloud, Vampira lunged down, colliding with the man and sending the Pertur skidding away. A smack with the snout of her sight on the side of his head, and he was out cold. As the remaining few civilians still standing pointed their plasma arms at her, she dove back, her legs still straightened, and knocked those behind her away to return to cover. One of his armed civilians circled back for her, to which another lunge locked him down too. 3 cries later, and the plasma fire ceased. Stepping out from behind the building cautiously, Vampira saw that they had neutralized the entire force, all either injured or unconscious. Celine Garsoon rushed to restrain those most able before they recovered, reading from pain. Approaching the target house to hushed curses that she thought might have been for her, she pried the door open, consuming souls while metal crumpled under her hand as it resisted. Ceasing all consumings except for a small healing, Vampira stepped inside and stiffened. In front of her, frozen in the middle of what looked like a run in front of a couch, was a little Maquis girl. Pale yellow, with her hair tentacles that didn't reach below her ears, she was dressed in a loose white dress, her expression that of hidden horror, her eyes round and staring at Vampira, likely the child of one of the targets. Expression softening, Vampira raised a calming hand, which made the girl flinch audibly. Stepping toward her slowly to not scare her while crouched down to her height, Vampira whispered, "Hey, it's okay. Stay right there. Nothing's gonna happen to you." The girl stayed where she was, though Vampira doubted it was because of anything she said. She was almost close enough to touch the girl now. Looking around the room, she couldn't see anyone else or anywhere to hide. The house stripped bare. Bare except for... Vampira brought her sight in front of her as the girl ducked and a red Maquis came up from behind the couch, a small plasma arm in his hand. He fired, and a blue bolt of plasma struck at her heart through her coat and plate. Vampira gasped as she felt it shrivel like Brad flute in the span of a second. Rushing to consume more souls, the wound started healing faster, only to have another bolt hit her stomach, eating away at her even as her body rushed to heal the wound. Raising an arm to protect her head, the Maquis fired 4 times, burning away her entire arm and shoulder even as she struggled to regrow it, something heavy falling on her foot as she backed away. Ready to throw her sight, Vampira saw the Maquis try and fire again, only for nothing to come out. Letting out a breath of relief, Vampira let her heart and stomach completely heal before slowing it down for her arm. A glance at the ground showed the thing that had fallen was one of her hidden daggers she kept in her sleeves, melted and misshapen from the plasma. Approaching the Maquis, who again tried firing the empty plasma arm, she knocked it out of his hands with her sight. Funny thing about small blights, the plasma packs don't hold very much, especially one that small. The Maquis backed away, running a hand through his purple hair. Waiting until she could feel her fingers again, Vampira stopped healing and increased her strength, flipping the couch aside with her regrown arm. The crouching Maquis girl yelped, running into the arms of what Vampira presumed was her father. There was no blight plasma arms mentioned being in the arbor in this puny little thing. Vampira knocked the plasma arm further away. Is decidedly non-standard. Where did you acquire it? She glared at the Maquis, who clutched his child more tightly. Vampira rolled the area where her shoulder and heart had been hit, a lingering feeling not unlike heartburn reminding her of what that puny little thing had done to her. Even after 6 centuries, she still wasn't used to how plasma burns felt. The Maquis father didn't respond to her question, his eyes never leaving her. Alright, if you don't want to tell me where you got the plasma arm. Vampira held her sight up, the tip almost touching the Maquis' neck. Then make things easy and tell me where the targets are. The fear on the Maquis' face was now fighting with confusion. What are... Please, she's a child. A child! Surely. He's about to open and close as if trying to say something, but nothing came out, only a look of pleading. Glancing at the young girl, her face hidden behind her father, Vampira pursed her lips and relented, lowering her sight and contacting her squad inside. Celine Garsoon entered a few moments later. You asked for... Zlee trailed away, looking at Vampire's healed arm, the sleeve a bunch of shreds. I'm fine, Vampire assured her. Take the kid away. The McKee's father's eyes widened further, and he started shaking his head furiously. No, no, don't take them, I beg you. It was Vampire's turn to look confused. Did he want his daughter to stay as she interrogated him? She thought he'd been asking that she not let his daughter see. Her attention was drawn away as Garsoon turned and responded as someone over the comm. Ma'am, Garsoon said, Operations Commander Tavik is asking that the family be brought to him. The civilian uprising has been quelled. He also said to inform you that your brother, Mark, arrived just earlier. He's waiting at your freighter now. Vampire frowned. Mark was here, but she'd been sent because he hadn't been available. Why would he be? Shaking her head, Vampire said, Take them. Do as the Operation Commander tells you. I'll be at my freighter. With one final look at the target and the child, she strode a house toward the landing bay. She was going to have the word with her brother. And that's the end.
Okay. Very short as well. I like it was Vampire that was saying the kind of giving the like we don't kill kids thing, right? Or is that somebody else?
Vampire very much doesn't want to kill a child. It's personal and just kind of, it's like one of her few lines. It's just like, I don't want to hurt a kid.
That makes sense.
The father is the one asking that, if that's what you're referencing. He's like, she's a child. She's like trying to be like, Vampire, please don't. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll take her away so I can interrogate you without scaring the child.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Couple of word choices here and there, like maybe, like when she's introduced, to say rather than say like even though the introduction was unnecessary, as opposed to introduction unnecessary or something like that. And I think like hidden horror was like odd choice of words there. I can't say I've like heard that phrase used for somebody who's like terrified. Like honestly, could be a style choice, but like that just kind of stuck out to me as something odd.
Okay. Anything else?
Let's see. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Was the pacing better this time? Did it seem less chock-filled if I ended it there?
Pacing seems fine, yeah. Mostly like
Yeah, it was fine.
it's interesting
Yeah.
to gauge because it's relatively short.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, since it's short, it's hard to tell because it's only a brief action, but it seemed fine. It seemed good enough. The pacing. Yeah.
All right, so at least that part's fixed. More or less.
Yeah.
Good. I also had to add in the hidden dagger part because I haven't had a chance to say that yet. And I don't want to bring it up later. It's like, wait, when has she had daggers? I'm like, she's always had them. I just never brought them up.
Yeah, that might be a little, yeah.
So I had to add it here somehow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thankfully, it's a sleeve, and her sleeve was just shredded, so that gave me opportunity.
Okay. That's smart.
Yay. If there's nothing else, I believe it's Codex's turn.
Codex had his turn already.
No, wait, Valerian's. Sorry. But my
And-
brain is very floopy. I didn't
Okay.
sleep.
Nice.
Fair
I can
enough.
go on. You want me to?
That would be interesting. Let's see. Come on, you. I'm trying to share a screen, but it's being stupid. I might have to give up on sharing the screen. Let's see. Is this going to work?
Hello, how's it going on Hypatia?
Oh, it did work. Weird. Okay.
It just took a minute for it to load up.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. So this is, we're back to the Count of Monte Fato, Count of Monte Cristo in Middle-earth. So, last time we were there, the Abbe Frodia had revealed the existence of this will that left an enormous screaming treasure. And he'd revealed the existence of this enormous treasure, including the One Ring, to... He'd revealed all this to Samoir Gamgez. And the two of them were hanging out together in prison. So, and is there in the world no more legitimate heir than we? Inquired Samoir hesitantly. None, I assure you, mon fils, replied Frodia. After the death of Sauron and Fredegario, an end came to all the legitimate owners of this property in Terre Moyenne. If ever we escape together from prison, we will share our blessing. If you escape alone, it is yours. I have no right to it, protested the younger Obit. Its totality should belong to you. No, my son. You are the child of my captivity. Eru has sent you to me in order to console both the Obit who could not father children, by Cassiop de Touc, and the prisoner who could not be free. The two hobbits continued their digging as best they could, given the frail condition of the Abbe, who, as he had warned Samoir, was subject to epileptic attacks on the 6th of Narkeler and the 13th of Sulimos, those are months, of every year, on account of some unfortunate incidents involving rings and spiders, and about which the savant was not very forthcoming. It was therefore vital that they finish the excavation before the latter date, which, according to Frodia's calculations, was due to arrive in 21 days. Pardon me a second. Sorry, getting some water. Yeah. Should I succumb, pick some atela from the secret garden I cultivate on the rat droppings in the west corner of my cell, said the Abbe. Crush it and moisten it with the appallingly poor wine they serve here, and then apply it to my forehead, saying the rhyme. When the soufflé noir is overdone, and the shadow of death trasks Carcassonne, and all lights perish avec grand fracas, come atela, life for the dying, in vain ordinaire lying. Repeat the rhyme now. Gamgez did so, having instantly committed it to memory. Alas, they reckoned not with the new old calendar instituted by Aragon the 19th, which caused the date to arrive some 5 days before they expected it. So it was quite sudden and unexpected when the pallor of death whelmed Frodia's face like a frost in spring. His eyes gazed forth as if seeing things far away. No! Cried Samoir, grief-stricken. Not when we are so close to attaining our goal of liberty. Liberty, yes, said the Abbe, but not for me. It must often be so, mon cher Gamgez. When things are in danger, someone has to give them up, lose them, and the others might keep them. But you are my heir. All that I have or might have had, I leave to you. You will be the Count of Monte Fato, and Lord Adam made up name, and the Abbé Glorfindoni, and Erando le Marin, and perhaps other aliases that I cannot see. And you will excel so much at every field of knowledge and of human endeavor that, were you a woman, people will believe you are Marie Suzanne. When you puff on your Nazgule and imbibe the exquisite Bordeaux wine you will buy with the treasure, while being massaged by beautiful odalisques, think of me. So saying, he lost consciousness. Samoir tried everything that the good Abbé had taught him of medicine, but in vain. Vrodia was dead, or, as one says in Arnor, he had trépassé. Okay. And that's the end of that chapter, but I'll read it a little bit, because that was short, I'll read a little bit more of the next chapter. Combining his remarkable skill in swimming with the roping talents he had acquired from his uncle André, Samoir swiftly released himself from the sack and swam underwater for 7... Wait. All right. What the... Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a page. The chapter's not over yet. There's one more page of that chapter, and then we can start. Sorry about that. Samoir wept bitter tears and almost resumed his earlier dark thoughts of suicide. But no, he wished to live, and to take vengeance on those who had wronged him. So, before long, his mind turned to thoughts of escape. Though the digging was complete, he found his flight hindered by yet another obstacle, more redoubtable than the castle wall itself: the Silent Watchers. These were the most horrible abominations of the Ancien Régime, 2 white marble statues seated upon thrones, each with 3 bodies and 3 heads topped with powdered wigs, facing inward, outward, and across the doorway. They seemed immovable, and yet they were aware. Occasionally they even quoted Racine. Therefore, Gamgés contrived another plan. By now, the authorities had discovered the Abbé's death and had him wrapped in a shroud. Quickly, Samoir moved Vrodia's remains to his own cell and then hid himself in the shroud, reckoning that after burial he could easily delve his way to the surface. The only mild hitch was that he was not interred at all, but was tossed into the tempest-torn sea, the graveyard of the Château de Locahol. Okay. So, a couple pages of the next chapter, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see. Combining his remarkable skill in swimming with the roping talents he had acquired from his uncle André, Samoir swiftly released himself from the sack and swam underwater for 7 leagues, until he judged himself distant enough from the Château de Locahol to emerge from the watery abyss without that his erstwhile captors perceived him. The nearest land was 2 leagues distant. Observing wryly that he did not possess Elouine's talent for transforming into a seabird when far from land, the intrepid Hobbit made a supreme effort and pulled himself to shore, where he collapsed, passing out of time and knowledge. When he awoke, he found himself surrounded by masked outlaws dressed in Lincoln green. "Would you care for some venison?" said the leader. "It's not quite first rate, since we ran out of Bordeaux when the Turks confiscated it several moons since. But I hope it will serve." "To a starving man, I am sure it will be more than adequate," laughed Gamgés, and promptly threw himself on the rather rare meat that his benefactor held out for him. "To whom do I owe this favor?" he inquired. "I am Guillaume de Ferny, contrebandier de tabac." "Pardon me," replied the outlaw. "Parbleu, I was so frightened by your uncut foot here that I nearly left you for dead. Though you still seem very strange to me. Outwardly, you resemble a vagabond utterly devoid of sartorial talent. Yet within, you are an epicure de premier ordre, I deem. It is a marvelous occupation you have, said Samoir, evading the implicit question. If you don't sell your merchandise, you can always use it yourself. As for my foot hair, I made a vow not to cut it for a year after Lucien obtained for me admission to the chambers of Madame de Magot, queen among farmers' wives. But speaking of years, exactly what year is it? What year? You ask me what year it is? Yes, I ask of you what year it is. How do you not know? What do you wish? Laughed Gamgez. I have been in such fear of my life, having eaten but 4 meals today, that I cannot distinguish calendrier du soir from champignon olympe. This is the year 1829 of the Convertation Chirienne, replied one of the smugglers. Samoir smiled sadly. So he had been in durance vile for 14 years. Did his former bride Rosédes even realize he was still alive? The leader regarded Gamgez appraisingly. Do you have any talents, he asked at length, other than gourmandise, that is, at which it is well known that all hobbits excel. I am one of the best mariners in the western half of the Mer Andorienne, replied Gamgez without hesitation. I will show you. I will execute a Syrian tirade à triple lurz upon your vessel, and if I fail, you can kill me. Excellent, smiled de Ferny. I have not killed anyone in weeks. Gamgez laughed immoderately and performed not a Syrian tirade à triple lurz, but a quadruple élandillage à nianoret fricassé. Don't ask me what that is. You're hired, said de Ferny, when he had recovered from his complete stupefaction. Naturally, Samoir, or Erando le Marin, as he preferred to call himself, fairly promptly became the de facto leader. He determined to exploit his new status to find the Isle of Montefato, but permitted no sign of this purpose to evince itself. He carefully counted the days after the Abbé's death, recalling that the savant had predicted that Turin's day would arrive 23 days after said death. Faudia, of course, knew all calendars, save the new computation that proved his downfall, by heart. Our food supplies are running somewhat low, he remarked. That is Gamgez. When he realized the day had dawned. Does any island nearby offer good game? Of course he knew the answer well, given his exact recollection of every detail upon which the Abbé had instructed him. Why, yes, the Isle of Montefato, said Gamlino, an old retainer from Eriadorsica. Bango, thought Gamgez. Then we should surely head there, he suggested aloud. If Monsieur de Ferny wishes it, of course. Monsieur de Ferny merely grunted, so the decision was put into effect. Now, reflected Samoir as they set sail, I will learn whether Frodia's teachings regarding Montefato are as sure as Chardonnay or cheese from Brie, to use a rustic proverb of which the good Abbé would certainly not approve. And I think that will do for the moment.
I love Count of Monte Cristo and Middle Earth. It's a weird juxtaposition.
Actually, it works pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
I think it works. I just find it amusing.
Yeah, because sometimes the styles actually mesh surprisingly well. So, is this French? Well, sort of French, sort of not exactly French, because some of it is Frenchified Elvish and various terms from Tolkien turned into fake French. Some of it is.
So French
this
Tolkien,
seems-
then, essentially.
Yes, if Middle Earth were 19th century France.
Interesting.
I've been misspelling Bionicle. That's not surprising, though.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a plant biomechanical, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be spelled with an AL at the end, not an LE. So I was wrong. But that's, like I said, that's not the least bit surprising.
No worries. Alrighty. Cool. I believe that it is my turn. Okay. This is chapter 17. This is actually going to be from the perspective of one of the bad guys of this story, at least so far. Since we've had a lot of stuff from the good guys, it's time to check in with the antagonists. So, for some context, a lot of these people have taken over the bodies of basically fallen angels, have taken control of a bunch of different high-ranking officials with the intent to try and regain some of their power. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. Okay. Alexandria walked along the streets of Byzantium, now Nordenbar, letting herself revel and finally finding her way home. I'd almost forgotten this place, she thought, remembering her centuries in the Amaran plain with distaste. That place. She'd gone mad for a time after the wave of darkness had destroyed her body and hurled her down here. Demons had attacked her en masse, but she had torn through them like an enraged lion. Defying demons in the Amaran plain was like pulling weeds. Every time one was killed, it reformed in another location. Yet she had fought on. And once she'd met up with the other Elder Ones, soon they had broken the demons' wills. We've missed so much, she whispered. Highness? One of her guards remarked. Aren't either they're not understanding or not hearing? Nothing, Alexandria said at a more normal pitch. Just voicing some thoughts. She remembered being simple royalty a very long time ago, but nearly 4,000 years lay between where she was now and that time. Before she'd been called to free the slaves in Ramesson, I parted seas, humbled kings, and brought down rain and bread from the sky at need, she thought, flexing her hands absently. I'm a god compared to them. I have communed with divinity herself, an honor only Gwynevere received centuries before me. But I must conceal it from those who should honor me. Instead, they worshipped Gwynevere. When she'd first attended one of the shrines, she'd immediately recognized the fallen Elder One and had been quite shocked that out of all the Elder Ones, only Guinevere's memory remained. Mordred's attempts to preserve her memory must have been successful. So while being somewhat fruitless as well. She thought as she passed through the Theonore statue of Guinevere in the town center, the memory of what they'd erected in her honor rising to the surface of her mind. Old. So, she thought, I feel so old. The voice of one of her attendants made her realize that she'd voiced her thoughts aloud. You're not old. You're barely into the flower of your maturity. Poor ignorant humans. Alexandria stroked the top of the cart plinth on which its Guinevere's feet rested. Its bare feet rested. So many advances since I was cast from my place as the one you followed without question. But you've forgotten so much history. Much as history becomes myth and time distorts the perception of what came before. I feel old, Alexandria said mildly. So many things have happened, and I can barely keep up. Your Highness! She turned to see the high priestess of Guinevere walking toward her, wearing what seemed to be a dress from carefully interwoven strips of cloth. She bowed, making a gesture indicating honor and respect. Alexandria replicated the gesture but did not bow. Highness, we have need of your presence at the Great Temple. Please, will you grace the meeting? We have received concerning reports from Black Lake, and we need your counsel and support. Pardon this. Alexandria wasn't sure what to think of a young and attractive high priestess. Most people who entered a priesthood were seasoned veterans, but with a few child prodigies or puppets, depending on the area. But a smart, beautiful woman in her early 30s in a long line of such women was something she hadn't seen often. Of course, Priestess Maeve. She nodded to the human woman and then to her attendants. Priestess bowed her head out again, touching her forehead in a gesture of thanks. Why couldn't Lancela preserve more of the old religion of the Great Mother? Alexandria thought as she had made the gesture for accepting another's appreciation that Lancela had shown her. Every time I'm here, I'm reminded of him. Mordred had betrayed them, betrayed her, and now he was loose in the body meant for Siegfried, with Fenris still out there somewhere. She breathed out slowly to calm herself. Then she remembered something. Black Lake was close to the old forest based on the maps that Lancela had shown her. The spot where Gilgamar, Siegfried, Typhon, and Echidna were supposed to be revived. The spot where Mordred is likely to be. She suppressed a smile as she followed Maeve to the enormous temple that had once been Guinevere's palace. It felt odd living in Artorius' fortress when Alexandria's own palace still stood. The times had changed. Besides, Caesarius was living in the prince's palace, as her new home was called. Names may change, but functions remain the same. And she thought, before she'd fallen, every major city had a prince. and saw our other official as the main governor of the city. That he, with only the ruler of the kingdom and the elder ones being superior to them, that system remained, though they would act as assistants to the ruler by sending out instructions and making laws to preserve order, which was a new wrinkle. A lack of instantaneous communication necessitates that, I suppose, she thought as she approached the enormous spired castle, like palace with large square towers. Perhaps they should rectify that soon. They could replace some of the mages with elder ones. Not likely, but it might speed the process of easing their way through the conquest to come. What exactly is this issue? Alexandria asked as they entered the palace. There is a man out of Black Lake claiming to be the herald of the goddess, Maeve explained. And ushering Alexandria into a large room where a group of priests and priestesses. Clearly, this is irregular. But there are certain things that are interesting about this person. It's Mordred. Alexandria hid a smile. He should have hid, laid low. But no, he's out in the open for me to find him. Black Lake, she paused. Isn't that Lake Blackhear? Perhaps. Maeve seemed to think. I remember seeing a scrap of parchment with that name on it, but everything else on it had been destroyed or faded. Ah, I see. Alexandria nodded thoughtfully, but on the inside she was cringing. The lack of good record keeping after she'd been destroyed. Black fire held around her and Caesarius, destroying her pawn, and as efficiently as an elder one went. She grabbed her palm with the opposite two fingers and squeezed. Not now, she thought. I will not think of that day. They can't do that again. They don't have the power. Carefully controlling her face, she nodded pleasantly to the priests as they rose to their feet. Respectfully, they nodded to Alexandria, pressing their hearts their hearts in a gesture of fealty. One day they would kneel as was proper, but for now, bowing before who they thought was their queen, earthly queen, would suffice. Carefully, she took a seat at the head of the table at the Queen's palace, and motioned for the priests to begin their discussion. Clearly, this man is either a lunatic or a dangerous heretic. One of the more jolly priests declared, voice reminiscent of a bulldog's growl. Or he's telling the truth. Which he is, Alexandria thought. Well, since the Herald vanished thousands of years ago, it's likely that this is just a man starting a movement. Thank you, Lancelot, for giving me the requisite information about these people's butchering of history. How shall we deal with him? One of the priests asked, spreading his hands and gesturing uncertainly. He could prove a deadly threat to our holy church. He must be stopped, of course. Alexandria made a show of smashing her fist on the table, but only with a small particle of her strength. She couldn't destroy the table with a single blow, after all. If the church is in danger, then we must defend her with all our force. And if he is the herald? Maeve asked, gesturing thoughtfully with her right hand. If we fight against him prematurely, and he is the herald, then we would be fighting against the goddess herself. He cannot be. One of the priestesses, a middle-aged woman with graying black hair, protested in a shrill, almost piping voice. The herald would announce himself here, at the center of our faith. He would do it in power and glory, like unto the raging sun at noon. Ah, this must be Laviarna, the famed scriptorian, Alexandria thought. Interesting that she's come all this way for this. This must be something she's very passionate about, even if she is completely wrong about everything. Indeed, Alexandria drummed her fingers against the table. If this man is not the herald, which our venerated scriptorian believes that he is not, then he is a great threat to the sanctity of the church. Ergo, we must make an example of him. There are at least 2 kingdoms that have converts to our faith who will ride to her defense if we call, the jolly priest declared. We must quash this insurrection immediately. He is a danger, but not to you people, Alexandria thought. How ironic. Well, what do you think, High Priestess? She said instead, motioning towards Maeve. I believe we should make sure before we do anything drastic, the High Priestess declared, rising to her feet and resting her fingertips on the table. We must not do anything we cannot take back. We have not lasted this long by violently oppressing any insurrections. We have lasted by sending missionaries and theologians to convince them of the righteousness of the church. We are not thugs. Our swords have only ever been employed in the defense of the people or direct threats to the church. She met the eyes of everyone in the room with dignity and grace. So to that end, I say that we examine this man, see what his intentions are. Discover if he is the herald of the goddess, our most holy prophet. He was never a prophet, just a son who loved his mother. How do you plan to have him prove himself? By cross-examining him, Alexandria asked, interlacing her hands in her lap. Surely there are signs and portents that can be tied to the herald. For one thing, he will claim that he is the son of Guinevere. Aviana leaned back in her chair, eyes gazing silently as she flicked through her knowledge of their books. He will have the powers that no mage can match, healing abilities beyond what a normal mortal man is capable of, prowess of the blade unlike any warrior that has ever lived, and a complete and total knowledge of the teachings of the goddess. Fair assessment of Mordred, Alexandria had to admit. Mordred was powerful, or he had been before his body had been destroyed. Now he was in an inferior vessel with no way of getting a new, more potent one. He would have a cap on his powers that would prevent him from reaching the heights that he once had. However, even with a vessel that had not been prepared for him, Mordred would still have the capabilities that Laviarna had mentioned, even if he would have to recharge himself regularly. Based on the reports, this person has abilities that match what Laviarna has described. Maeve gestured to the attendants, who then began spreading a set of papers among the assembled priests. Based on the letters, he has caused the blind to see, the lame to walk, even bringing those on the brink of death back to full health. She gestured around the room as the others began reading through the letters. Alexandria accepted her own letter graciously and pretended to read it, but she knew what was contained in it, what it contained already. Clearly trying to emphasize her words, Maeve raised the letters. We should send a delegation to see what these men's intentions are, and we should test him to see if there are any more signs that he can produce to prove his identity. A good idea, Alexandria nodded. However, this escort should have an army. Not just in case. A small bodyguard, Maeve countered. We don't want to start a civil war. Not with these cultists attempting to destabilize our kingdom and murder our people. If this is the herald, he is sent from the gods to help us in our great time of greatest need. You don't worship the Divine Mother. I have seen her, and you have strayed far from her. The goddess you worship is dead, and there is no divine will in all this. Alexandria rubbed her knuckles to give her something to focus on. If there is, then it's very different from what you think it is. This Mordred had always believed that there was a higher power guiding all events, a great mother, great mother who had made them. But Alexandria couldn't think of any real point of asking for aid. And after all this time, they were the elder ones were these people's gods now. The elder ones had a duty to defend, but they also had the right to rule. Very well, how many men do you need? She asked, concealing her thoughts. Lancela and Caesarius, kill him quickly. 30 should be more than sufficient, Maeve said, strangely firm for being somewhat younger than most of the people there. I want enough to defend against bandits and cultists, but no more than that. I also want to be part of this delegation, as is my right as High Priestess. I don't think that would be wise, Alexandria said flatly. Better to be ready in case this man is dangerous and keep you safe. No, I'm going to see who this man is, if he is an imposter or not, Maeve retorted. That caused Alexandria to pause. Being told no by a simple human was a singularly unfamiliar experience to her. Maeve placed her hand on Alexandria's arm, clearly wanting to placate her. We've been friends for a long time, Annalana, she said mildly. Please, trust me as you always have. You missed something, Lancela, Alexandria thought with irritation. Very well, if you believe you must. Go then. I'll have to delay them with as many inconveniences as possible so as to ensure Alexandria, Ensla, and Caesarius reached Blackhear before them. She thought as Maeve smiled down on her. It's a good thing Jengurk is still here. I need someone to coordinate as much of this as possible. And that's the end.
Oops. Sorry, it looks like we were all AFK and are muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
No, I was doing the same thing. Or something comparable.
Mm.
That works.
Quite good so far.
Thank you.
So, the religious implications of Mordred, plus Alexandria is a demon who's possessing someone else.
So how it works is that she and Mordred are both angelic beings that originally had bodies and were tasked with guiding the people. And she's been around for several centuries. So, not necessarily a demon, but she is fairly powerful, and she does utilize demons as her army. But she's not a demon herself. She's just possessing the body of a human.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty intriguing stuff. You've got the priests wondering, what does this mean for our religion and all that stuff? Is Gwen, which makes me wonder, because Gwen, if Mordred came back, I suppose Guinevere could come back too. So what would happen if she? What would happen if she did?
So it's actually already been talked about that Guinevere is permanently dead.
Oh, has it? Okay. But how would they know though? I mean, they wouldn't know.
So Mordred's sword has the ability to kill Elder Ones permanently, and he got it from the person who killed Guinevere as basically a were-guild.
Okay. So basically, she's sincerely dead. Okay, that's too bad.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's interesting. Let's see. There was one bit, making a gesture, maybe with a gesture.
Yeah, I could probably change that, yeah.
That's no big You're reading a little low sometimes. Maybe reading a little louder and more emphatically.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Is this better? Yeah, my mic was a little bit far away from my face.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you okay, but it was a little bit mumble-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That was totally my bad. I should be putting it closer to my face.
That's disgusting. I'm very disappointed. This is the end of everything.
Yeah, like putting my. Yeah, it was about here, and now it's like right here. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Looks like you have a fence in your room, mate.
It does, yeah.
It's just that is the upholstery work. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, any other feedback before we finish off?
It sucked.
Oh dear.
Sorry. Someone had to do that.
I know.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
funny. Alrighty. Well, I think we will conclude it there, folks. Next week's going to be interesting, to say the least. Oh my goodness. But the craziness of the endeavor will not prevent us from making at least the attempt to provide you with interesting, fun content.
What are you hinting at?
Well, I'm going on a trip Thursday through Friday next week with a very, very good friend of mine who I very rarely get to see. And I know that we're going to be trying to do maybe 2 to 3 episodes of the quest. We'll probably just do 2. Unless I need to make another Rumble account. This will be 3 at this point. Just need to make us a new email. That's the main thing.
I think you should just create Rumble accounts in advance at this point.
Probably. It's just really frustrating to upload everything. Since we have such a huge back catalog of stuff. and I can never tell what's going to get taken down and what's not.
Yeah.
Because they don't give you any info on like what differentiates. Since I've been able to, so I wasn't able to upload since last night got taken. So Transformers The Last Night got taken down, but none of the anime Lord of the Rings movies got taken down, or I think it was Around the World in 80 Days got monetized instantly. So Rumble just doesn't make any sense.
So the older ones, it lets you do the older ones, but not the newer ones.
I believe so, yes. It's like a 10-year thing. It's within the last 10 years have bots, but then again, the Lord of the Rings ones got taken down fairly quickly. Those are the first ones that got me taken down. So I have to private those. I guess I just can't monetize anything on Rumble, any of our commentaries on Rumble.
Shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's annoying.
So I just have to private everything, and since I can't trust Rumble to just let it pass through. Alrighty. But Writer Showcase, I'm not sure. It'll probably be on Sunday next week. Since that's when Tarek's available. We will see. Hopefully it will work. Anyway, I will see you all later. Adios.
Have a riot.
Adios.
Enough! Kill me! Just end it.
No.